Hi everyone, Morgan Hibbs here with Lynn County Farm Bureau. I'm excited to be visiting your classroom for month 2 of our Virtual Ag in the Classroom program. This month, October, we are going to be doing a fun lesson called The Case of the Missing Pumpkin. Now, last month was Intro to Ag. I hope you had fun learning about what grows here in Iowa. So since it's October, we are going to celebrate with a fun lesson called The Case of the Missing Pumpkin. Now, when you think of pumpkins, what do we use pumpkins for? We might use them for making a scary pumpkin or a happy pumpkin during the holiday Halloween. We might also enjoy eating pumpkins if you like pumpkin pie around the holidays like Thanksgiving. Some of you might have even tried pumpkin seeds. You can roast the pumpkin seeds and make a delicious snack, add them to a trail mix. Now, pumpkins are part of the squash family. So there's other types of squash like zucchini, butternut squash, spaghetti squash. Today, there weren't quite pumpkins out ready to be sold yet when I was making this video. So today I have it looks similar to a pumpkin, but this is an acorn squash. So squash is the family that pumpkins are involved or are a part of. So today we are going to learn about pumpkins, but we are also going to learn about the life cycle and how pumpkins complete the life cycle by then nourishing the soil. And soil, you learned in our Intro to Ag lesson, soil is very important to agriculture because soil is how we grow our corn and soybeans, how we grow the grass for the cows, and it's how we produce a lot of the food that we eat and enjoy and a lot of the products that we use. Our story today is called Pumpkin Jack, and it is available as a video read aloud on our website underneath second grade. You can click on that video and read the story. I encourage you, if you haven't read it yet, to pause this video, go listen to the story. You can either listen to the audio version or you can mute the story and read it aloud as a class. And then when you are done reading the story, come back and resume play. Okay, now that you've read the story, Pumpkin Jack is about a pumpkin that goes through the life cycle. So it begins as a beautiful jack-o'-lantern. So the boy carved a face into the jack-o'-lantern, and he kept it all Halloween and all October, even into November. And then he started noticing that his pumpkin started to change shapes. What happened to the pumpkin? It started to break down and decompose. Can you say that word, decompose? Decompose. Decompose means when the pumpkin or any sort of living thing, like if the trees fall in the fall time, from the leaves fall from the trees, we have apples that fall from the trees and those start to change shape. So the grass starts to turn brown in the fall time, the corn and soybeans start to turn brown. So decomposing is when those living things start to break down. They start to change shape, they start to mold, they maybe grow fungus, they get soft, they start to flatten. So those are all important observations when thinking about why or how the pumpkin is changing. So where did the pumpkin go in the story? The pumpkin went to the garden. So the garden is where the rest of the plant materials from that summer are starting to decompose also. So the pumpkin went to the garden, and over winter it started to continue to change. Pretty soon in the springtime, we came back and looked at the pumpkin. There wasn't much left of the pumpkin, maybe just the stem of the top of the pumpkin and the crumpled, wrinkly skin of the pumpkin. So we covered the pumpkin up with soil, and pretty soon in the springtime and summertime, what began to happen? Yes, the seeds began to grow. So I have some seeds here from my acorn squash, they began to grow because those seeds were inside the pumpkin, and as the pumpkin decomposed and broke down, it became soil. It helped to nourish the soil by providing it with nutrients, the nutrients from the pumpkin. As the pumpkin seeds were exposed to the soil and received those nutrients, they also received rain from the springtime, and then warm temperatures as the ground began to warm up in the spring. Those seeds began to grow, but it completed its life cycle. So we had a pumpkin, we carved the pumpkin started to decompose. Pretty soon it started to grow, and then you might have seen in the story that it started to grow. It had leaves, and then it had a beautiful yellow flower that was pollinated. Pretty soon a small green pumpkin formed on the vine, and then as it began to ripen, it started to turn orange. Now, not all pumpkins though are orange. Some pumpkins can be yellow, some can be white, some can be white and orange. There are even light blue and light green pumpkins. And there are dark green pumpkins as well. So just like my acorn squash here, my acorn squash is green and orange. There are different colors of pumpkins. A fun fact about pumpkins, the pumpkin we like to carve is not the same type of pumpkin we use for pumpkin pie. The pumpkin we like to carve is light, and it doesn't have a lot of the insides that we would use to make pumpkin puree. So the pumpkin puree pumpkin is more of a light orange color. It's a little bit more of a flat pumpkin, and it's really heavy because it has a lot of the good insides to make the pumpkin puree. Okay, so now we're going to make our compost bin. So we have our small bin here. I'm going to take my pumpkin or my acorn squash out. I already carved it, so if you have not carved your pumpkin yet, go ahead and take the lid off. If you want to, as a class, you can design a face with permanent marker, or you can carve a face. Teacher can carve the face, or parent. So what we're going to do is, a compost bin is a bin where we are speeding up that decomposing process. So the pumpkin is decomposing inside of my bin, so this is called a compost bin. You can make a compost bin with leftover scraps and things from your kitchen, and that's a good way to help provide nutrients to your garden or to the soil in your backyard, so that way you're not wasting those food scraps. Okay, so I'm going to add some soil to my bin. I added some soil. So now I'm going to place the pumpkin, or in my case, the acorn squash, into my bin. Now, you might not have enough room to put the lid or the top of the pumpkin back on top, so I'm going to leave it just in half like this, evenly in my bin, so that way I can top it with other things. So I have some grass clipping here. I'm going to place some grass clippings on top. If you do have some food scraps at home, if you're doing this at home, you can add those in here as well. I have some leaves and some sticks. I'm going to place those on top. And then I'm going to add a little bit more soil on top. Now, if you think about outside, Pumpkin Jack was in the garden. Did the garden stay wet or dry all winter long? It probably got a little wet from the snow, and then in the springtime when it started melting, it was probably really wet. Plus, in the springtime, April showers bring May flowers, so we usually get more rain in the springtime. So bacteria and fungus and mold and small bugs like moist environments. So we are going to now spray our compost bin. So I have a spray bottle here, so you're just going to spray the compost bin. Now the leaves and the sticks and the grass clippings came from outside, So there could be small little bugs and bacteria in those already that will help speed up the process of our compost, of our decomposing pumpkin. This will get smelly in your classroom, so make sure you put the lid on tight and tape the sides. When you have the new kits delivered and I pick up the old kits, you can place this whole thing in the tote and I will take it and dispose of it. If you would like to dump it out in your own garden, you can do that too. But just in case you didn't want to go ahead and clean it and everything, don't worry, I can do that for you. So just make sure that you put the whole thing back into the tote and I can take care of it. Okay, decomposing pumpkin observations. In science, we try to explain or describe the experiment to the best of our abilities, so that way we can compare and contrast from week to week how the experiment is changing. So we are going to use describing words or adjectives to help explain what the pumpkin looks like today. So today's date that I'm recording the video is September 8th, so 9/8/20, but write down the date that you are watching the video or that you made the compost bin. Okay, now we have 5 circles. I would like you to brainstorm as a class some observations or adjectives of how to describe the pumpkin today. How does it look today, the day we made our compost bin? So you might say things like, the pumpkin is orange. You might notice in a week or two, the color might start to change. Today, the pumpkin might be smooth. Today, the pumpkin might be hard. But in a few weeks, I bet like our story, you will notice that the pumpkin starts to get wrinkly and might not be as hard. It might start to break down and become more soft. It might be wet from the water that we added. And maybe let's notice the shape. Is your pumpkin round? Maybe your pumpkin's not round. Maybe your pumpkin's a different shape. Okay, now I'm going to turn to my back page, and I would like you to draw a picture of your pumpkin compost bin. So draw a picture, write the date again, so 9/8/20 is the day that I'm recording the video, and describe the pumpkin. So now, and don't worry if I'm going too fast, your teacher will pause the video and you'll have a chance to work on this together as a class. So now we are going to use the adjectives we thought of on the front page to write about the pumpkin, to describe the pumpkin. So we said the words like orange, wet, hard, smooth. We talked about the shape and how it was round. So today, maybe our sentence might be, and make sure you always start a sentence with a capital letter and end it with a period. The pumpkin is round and orange. Can you think of another sentence? If so, and you have room, you can write it on the second half of the lines there. Now this next page is for you to keep track of how the pumpkin changes for the next 4 weeks of the month. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed making your pumpkin compost bin, and I'm excited to hear how your pumpkin has changed and how it will change in the next 4 weeks. And enjoy your holiday coming up here and celebrate with your case of the missing pumpkin.